Hello, EDCON. Aniket and I, Rob Stupay, work at Remix, and we're giving a talk about how Remix works with other projects. So Remix is dedicated to helping you develop your smart contracts and to using the best tools out there and to mix and match how you want to use these tools. So I'm going to go through how you can use some of these tools inside a Remix. But the first thing to know is an essential ingredient, which is RemixD, which RemixD connects a folder on your computer with remix.ethereum.org, the website. So that means you can save files on your computer, you can use version control on that folder, you can clone repos into that folder and have them appear on the website, on the remix.ethereum.org website. It also allows larger repos because there's a limitation to how many full files you can stick into Remix before the local storage runs out of space. Anyway, you get this at npm and install that. It's generally a good thing to have. Whoops. Okay, so another tool is the Open Zeppelin wizard, where you can customize a ERC20 or 721 or 1155 contracts, and then click this button, and then they'll open it up in Remix, and then you can start playing with them and deploying them and using them further. And another interesting tool we got is a plugin for Wallet Connect. So this allows that you can you can approve transactions on your phone as long as it's a Wallet Connect enabled wallet on your phone, and it means that you can, and if that wallet is connected to testnet, then you can approve transactions on testnets and have them the transaction that's generated from Remix. And this will be it's a cool addition for Remix, but it's also, you can use this from the Remix desktop version. I assume you all know about Remix desktop. If you don't, and you want to run Remix from as a desktop app, you can get that. But also coming up is there the new VS Code extension for Remix. So this means you can run Remix inside of VS Code. So a lot of you, or maybe all of you, are using VS Code from a lot of your programming, and now you can have this extension and run Remix from inside of VS Code. And you get it from the VS Code marketplace, and just search that Ethereum Remix for that, or go to the website, the marketplace website, and you can get it there. The overview of how this works is once you get a workspace going in VS Code and you click the extension, you'll get the core functionality of Remix here, the plugins down here. You should go through the plugins and check them out. But these are basically the same plugins that are appearing in Remix. Your code is up here, and the output down here is what will be appearing in what would usually appear in the Remix terminal. And on the right side, which you'll see in a few minutes, is where the plugins go. Again, here's the core parts of Remix, and here are the plugins. And if you're in the File Explorer of VS Code, we've snuck the Remix menu down here. So it's easy to get at. So if you want to compile, you click Compile. If you want to select the compiler version, and then it's all pretty straightforward. So here's compiling, the compiler. Well, actually, this isn't the compiler, but what happens here is when you want to compile, VS Code our extension will go out and grab the dependencies and the imports just like Remix does. And it imports in the same style as Truffle or Hardhat. So you can mix and match. And deploying is cool. You can deploy to local chains like Ganache or Truffle just by clicking here. You can connect to the in-browser JSVM chain on remix.ethereum.org, or you can actually connect with MetaMask, which is a huge cool thing to do. I'll show you how to do that in a couple of minutes, but you can also connect with Wallet Connect. Once you've deployed and once you've connected your chain to run and deploy, you'll see your address here. And then, like if you were in Truffle, sorry, at Ganache, you click that, and all the addresses would pop up. And then when you want to run a transaction, you see all the functions, and you can interact with them. And debugging is simple as well. You just put the transaction hash, click debugging, start debugger, and you get the remix debugger inside of VS Code. And then to use the remixd client to connect to the in-browser chain, or to use MetaMask, you click either here on the side, or you connect to remix. And then when you do that, you have to connect to remix. So you go to remix.ethereum.org and go to the file explorer and connect to the local host, which will start up, which will show you what folder you're working with on your hard drive. And then in the run and deploy tab of Remix, you'd select the environment, the injected Web3 environment, and then whatever the chain is that MetaMask is connected to, it will appear here. But then on the VS Code side, you'll see it over here. And you also see your address. And then once you make a transaction in the VS Code, the MetaMask will pop up on the browser and ask you to confirm the transaction. Another cool thing we've started to do outside, this is not about VS Code, but it's about dgit. It's a new plugin that we've got that helps manage version control. So, you know, in the browser, people lose their work because if the browser crashes and you lose your local storage, you lose your work. So, and also, you just have to know that all the computation and storage is happening in the browser, unless you're using remixd. But if you're not using remixd, it's really, you should use the new dgit plugin. So it turns any workspace, any remix workspace, into a separate Git repo. And then you can export those repos, download them to your computer and upload them to GitHub if you want to work that way. Or you can export them to IPFS and pin them as a repo on Pinata. I'll go over that a little bit more in a second. But yeah, so basically you can download your files, and I just basically went over this slide. But you can, it's a great tool for collaboration as well, because you can export your repos to Pinata on IPFS and someone else can import them. Or you can just export your repos to IPFS, and if your browser crashes, you have a backup. So this is what it looked like. It's a main panel plugin, and the files are, there are a bunch of tabs here. You add the Git tracking on the files tab. You download it in the files tab. The help tab, it has the complete documentation. And the Git tab is where you would do the commits. Here's the export tab where you would export it to Pinata. And you set up the Pinata with the API keys in the settings for Pinata. And now on to Aniket to talk about Hardhat and Slither.
Thanks, Rob. So apart from these things, we have also integrated some things from the Hardhat, and we will talk about that now. Yeah, next slide, Rob. So first thing is the Hardhat compilation that we have integrated with the Remix Solidity Compiler plugin. So you can connect the Remix ID using your Remix D plugin, which basically runs locally. It connects your local folder with the Remix ID. And once you are connected there, make sure that your shared project is a Hardhat project. And if everything is fine, so you will see a checkbox coming in this Solidity Compiler plugin, which will have the label Enable Hardhat compilation. And you can just check that box and run the compilation normally. And then along with the remix compilation, Hardhat compilation will also take place, and you will know the status of this compilation in this remix terminal highlighted in the second box. So next slide, Rob. Yeah, another one is that you can deploy a contract to Hardhat local node using the remix IDE. So basically, Hardhat provides a local network node using which you can deploy the contract and test the things very quickly. Remix has integrated one plugin which is named Hardhat Provider. So you can enable that plugin and you can select that from the environment from this deploy and run transactions plugin. And then there will be a checkbox to enter the JSON RPC endpoint. You can provide that endpoint. And then you can normally deploy the contract directly to that Hardhat network node. The one plus point is here that you can easily interact with the deployed contract using Remix ID itself. Yeah, next slide, Rob. Yeah, this is kind of one more interesting feature from the Hardhat side. So basically, Hardhat provides a console library which enables the user to use the console.log as we do in the other languages. So you can just import that library, which is on the top box, which is shown in the top box, import Hardhat console.sol. And then you can use the console.log statement usually to print the messages or the value in the contract. And whenever you will interact with those methods, corresponding logs will be printed in the Remix terminal. So you can see that in the third box highlighted here. Yeah, next slide up. Similarly, these logging can be used in the Solidity unit testing plugin. So that can be a great thing when you are writing the unit test for your smart contract. You can just add some logs to check the values like it is shown in the first block that we have written two console logs in the test case. And then when you will run that test case, it will show those logs in the Remix terminal itself. So it will also be containing the test name so that you can be clear that for which test case these logs are. So next slide, Rob. Yeah, another integration is from the Slider. So Slider is basically a Solidity static code analysis tool. And to use it, we need some prerequisites installed on your system locally. So because Slider is a CLI tool, you need to install it locally on your system along with the Solci and Solci Select because it works with that. So you need to connect your project with the Remix ID using the Remix D as we have done for the Hardhat compilation. And then there will be this new checkbox with the label enable slider analysis. You can check this box and then run the analysis normally. So you will further see the analysis report generated by the slider in the same plugin UI below. Another thing is that when we run this analysis for slider, we use the compiler configuration from the Solidity compiler plugin. And we know that Solidity is installed with a one fixed version. So we use the Solci select if there is a version mismatch from local Solci version and version selected in the Solidity compiler plugin. So you will know about this process in the Remix D console also, that your version is different from the installed Solci version. And then the required version will be installed and set using the Solci select. So yeah, next slide, Rob. Yeah, so as we are in crunch of time here, so you can look at these resources for more information about the integrations. These resources are mostly from Remix ID official documentation and the Medium publication. And here are some communication links that can be used for to reach out to Remix people in case of any feedback or suggestions. And thanks for your time.